All right, so we've talked about how computers are not smart, okay? They're not any smarter than humans are, but what they are good at is repetition. They can repeat and repeat and repeat and repeat and repeat. They don't get bored. They don't make mistakes unless you just have a major hardware failure. Um, so repetition is something that computers do well. So that's something that we want to learn really early on. Now, there's different types of loops. We're just going to deal with the for loop for now. So this is a for loop right here. Okay. So for, and then inside parentheses, we have int a, so integer a equals 0. Now we could call this integer whatever we wanted. We're just calling it a. A lot of programmers use I, but I like a because it's easier to write on the AP test because the I looks like a semicolon. And then a less than the number of times you want to run it. So 4 times, 5 times, 200 times, whatever. Semicolon a plus plus. A plus plus basically just increases a by 1. If that doesn't make sense, don't worry. We'll come back to what is actually going on here later. But for now, this is something you should just be able to write out and get in the habit of just being able to memorize. There's no semicolon here because we don't do semicolons on headers. Everything in here is what repeats. Now you might be asking, why can't we just copy and paste? Well, first of all, if I'm copying and pasting something 100 times, that's really screwing up the readability of my code. Now I'm having to scroll way, way, way down if I'm doing something 100 times. Not to mention if I'm doing something more times than that. Also, even if it's 5 or 6 times, there have been times where I've copied and pasted something 5 and 6 times, and then I realized I made a mistake. So I had to change it all 6 times. So it's just repetition is something that you don't want in your code. I've heard this phrase before. Keep your code dry. And dry stands for don't repeat yourself. So we've got 2 tools that help us to keep us from repeating ourselves, and one of them, well, we have lots of tools, but one of the main ones is loops. Anyways, so here's an example down here. For int a equals 0, a less than 5, so this is going to run 5 times, semicolon a plus plus, and then everything in here runs 5 times. Everything that's not in here is going to only run once. So let's see what happens. There we go. Okay, so the stuff that was outside the loop only did once. Everything else was 5 times. Now, as it turns out, if you only have one line of code that you want to repeat, you don't actually need the braces, okay? But if you try to do multiple lines, whatever the second line is, it will just assume that you didn't want to do that one 5 times. It'll just assume that only the first line after it, you want to repeat it. Okay. So if it's a one-liner, feel free to not worry about the braces. But if you have multiple, you need to have braces in there. And you need all of your code indented inside to make it easy to see that it's inside the for loop. So that's for loops. Very useful for repeating our code.